Hello and welcome to another video in our colour series. I'm currently working on this series called Understanding Colour, and this is the third one in the series so far, and I just want to show you what I've been up to. So here you can see all of the colour swatches that I've been making, and I've basically pulled out every single Neo colour and pencil that I own. I've made these cut up cards so that they're little swatch cards here, and as you can see I'm then colouring in the top section with every single supply that I have, and then I write in the bottom section the name of it and the brand, and this is going to make it easier to reorder things, but it's also so much easier to then pull together a palette and identify exactly what supply it is that goes with that I want to use. This has been so helpful so that I can see the true colour of each of my supplies, because as you can see here, like when you're looking into a box or into a pencil case, a lot of the time you're seeing the wrapper or maybe even like the colour on the end of the pencil, and it's not always the exact true colour of what comes out. So this has been really fun to see them all together. So here I'm swatching a few more. These are my Neo Colour 2s, and again I just add the colour to the top, and then I use my water brush pen just with water, and I activate part of the swatch, and this way I'm then going to be able to see what it looks like when it's wet and what it looks like when it's dry. And this is also true for some of my coloured pencils. So I have the Caran d'Ache Supracolor pencils, which are like basically watercolour pencils. So this is really helpful to do with that as well. And again, it just helps me to identify my supplies, what colours they are, and kind of how they work and the effects I can get with them. So here I'm swatching loads of my colours, some of my favourite colours. And yeah, it's just so nice to see them all together as well. This was one of the most fun parts, was I sat in my lounge on the coffee table and pulled together all of the different colours, and I was surprised how many colours I actually own. And I thought a lot of my colours would be really bright and vibrant because that's what I'm drawn to using, but I have quite a lot of earthy tones and more neutral tones, so it was really nice to see them all together. It's also nice to kind of see which ones I was intuitively drawn to that I want to pull together to create a palette. And that's the whole idea behind swatching these, is that it's going to help me make colour palettes in the future. I also pulled out my colour wheel to see how they fit together on the colour wheel, and then I can identify a bit better the relationships between them, what are complementary, and kind of how they sit together. Okay, so I've been having so much fun playing with these today. I'm so pleased that I made these little swatch cards, and it's so helpful that I know exactly what's what on each of them. Anyway, I've got out my colour wheel here, and I've also got this one as well, so I'm going to show you in a minute this more in depth, but right now I'm just going to show you how I've got these laid out. So as you can see here, I've tried to match them up as best I can around the wheel, and these are kind of colours that I feel really drawn to today, and you can see it's kind of quite evenly spread. But the main thing, if we have a look at this, you can see that we can use lots of colours in here which are kind of very similar. They sort of blend together really nicely. So that's what we've got going on here with all of these. We've got very slightly moving into the oranges, so sort of here, oranges, yellows, lovely sort of yellowy greens, right up into turquoises. So this is a really nice kind of section of the colour wheel here. We could shift it very slightly this way, so maybe slightly more of a green here, but this is kind of, yeah, this side of the colour wheel we're using. Now when we talk about complementary colours, which I'll show you this in more detail in a second, usually a complementary colour is directly opposite. So for example, we've got yellow here, so the opposite is purple. Equally, we've got green, the opposite is red, and we've got orange here, which the opposite is blue. So if you, for example, if we take all of these away, as nice as this colour palette is and as beautifully as these all kind of blend together, because we don't have an accent colour in there, it doesn't pop. So it can make your picture feel quite flat, which is great. That's fine if that's what you're going for. But to really help give kind of more depth to your artwork, it's really nice to use some sort of accent in a complementary colour, and it basically makes both colours pop by sitting next to each other because they're completely opposite on the colour wheel. So for example here, I'm kind of going with, I mean, a traditional way would be to just pick one thing that's opposite, so maybe here, which is kind of a deep purple. So we could maybe remove all of these and just have this as the main colour palette and this one here then, which is sort of, yeah, opposite a yellow really, but this would be the accent colour. So if we have this in amongst the palette, it will just lift it, and this could just be a few little marks in there. It doesn't need to be huge sections, and in fact it works better if your accent is just a little bit here and there. You could use it for outlining of certain things. Anyway, that's one way of doing it, but what I've noticed with the natural colour palette that I use is that I love pinks. So I've got a couple of pinks here, and actually this one is not a natural one I would normally go for. I'd normally go for something a little bit more pinky. So we are more on this side here. So if we counterbalance this as well, this is more of a tetrad kind of complementary, I think that's how you say it, breakup. And so here we've also got some blues. So Prussian blue, absolutely love, love, love this. And a really pretty sky blue. So as you can see then, we've got kind of some opposites here. So the pinks are opposite the greens, and we've got the blues here which are opposite the oranges. So again, these work really well. And this can become quite a complicated colour palette, hence why the colour book that we looked at last week is really nice that it's only sort of 3 or 4 colours. So it's a really nice starting point. But as you can see here, it's really nice when you actually lay things out and you can see the relationship together. So equally, if we're looking at this section here of our colour palette, we could equally remove some of these, maybe even this green one as well, and suddenly this here becomes a really harmonious colour palette because we're looking at this section over here. So again, because we're looking at this sort of third, I would say, they work really nicely together. And again, this is where it's nice to then bring in something opposite. So say we've got the turquoise there, which will really help all these other colours pop because it's on the opposite side of the wheel. So I hope that kind of makes sense, and this is how I'm trying to kind of pull together all of the colours that I love using and just seeing where they fit on the colour wheel and how they fit together. I really love the idea as well of, can you see here, these are all very similar shades, and I love the idea of using all of these together when I'm trying to use a yellow, for example. I actually build up layers of very slightly different colours together just to give so much more depth, and it's so much more interesting in the layering of my process. So yeah, I'm just going to play around a little bit more with all my colour swatches. I've got lots here, and see what else I can come up with. Okay, so whilst I've been swatching all these and we've been getting excited about using these beautiful colour wheels, let's dive into this one here a little deeper. Okay, so if we just kind of have a look at all the details, there's so much information on these. They're absolutely fantastic. Equally on the back as well. So we've got a breakdown here of what the primary colour is. So primary colours, red, yellow and blue. We've got the secondary colours, so orange, green and violet. And then we've got our tertiary colours. So there are 6 tertiary colours, each made up by mixing one primary with the adjacent secondary colour. So we can really learn a lot just from this wheel. We've also got warms and cools. So we're getting a lot of insight into already how our colours kind of fit together on the wheel. Here we've got what colour means, what hue means, what value means, the intensity, which is chroma or saturation. So that might be if you're using your Instagram editing app for your photos, you can increase saturation and it will make the colours pop. So yeah, you might have come across this word before. We've also got tint, tone, shade and neutral grey, which is interesting, isn't it? So a balanced combination of black and white, so there's kind of no colour in there. So a tint, we've got the colour plus white. A tone, we've got the colour plus grey, and the shade is the colour plus black. So let's look at our colours here. So obviously we've got all our main colours around the edge. So here we can see them all. These are the colours here. And we've got them here, so pure colour. So you can spin this around and it will show you the pure colour at the top. You've then got your tint, your tone and your shade. Tint, tone and shade. So if we remember, the tint was adding white, the tone was adding grey, and then the shade was adding black. So if we're starting with the red, we add white, we get this pink. If we add grey, we get this sort of off kind of peachy earthy colour. But if we add black, it goes to a dark red, so almost like a burgundy. And this works all the way around. So this is really, really helpful, especially when we're like mixing paints, we're adding this, that and the other. It's helpful to then see where these sit, not just within the main colours, but then here within the tints and tones and the shades. So yeah, this is really fantastic. But the thing I really love about this, which I really wanted to show you, was how we work with the complementary colours. So I already kind of showed you an example of, we've got this kind of side here where we can see all the colours that sit really nicely together. They're quite similar on the wheel, so they'll blend really nicely. So if you're trying to blend colours, especially with paints, sometimes I do this with like my Neo colours and I'll water activate them. So if I scribble them all down first, when I water activate them and blend them together, they will blend to create other colours. For example, if you've got, say, a yellow and a blue, you're going to blend them to make a green, because we've got the yellow here, the blue here, so they'll blend into some form of green along the way. Okay, but we have to then be careful with this, because if we're using complementary colours, so as it said here, we've got tertiary. So if we've got, say, let's start with our red, and we blend it with green, so say I'm putting down a really nice red colour with my Neo colours, and then I put down a green. When they blend and mix together, they'll end up being some form of brown. Now that's great if you're outdoors and you're doing lots of earthy tones, you're really painting from nature. You can really use this to your advantage, because you might not want these really bright, bold colours. But it's something to be mindful of, that these will blend much easily together, whereas if you're blending opposite in the colour wheel, you're going to end up with some form of brown. This is also great if you've only got blue, red and yellow. You'll know how to make a brown. You can make every colour basically out of just having a blue, a red and a yellow. So anyway, if we go back to here, so we've got our complementary colour. So here we've got, say, our blue violet. So it's slightly purpley blue opposite our slightly more orangey, umbery yellow. Yes, so we can spin this around. Here we've got the blue versus orange. Spin this around again. We've got kind of our turquoisey colours, bluey green, opposite our reddy oranges. So more kind of orangey colours and sort of peaches in there as well. So it's quite nice to kind of keep spinning this around to see what we can come up with. Equally, we've got this triangle here, okay? So we could either use all three of these colours here, plus the complementary, and this is going to really help the colours to pop. So once you put some sort of red or pink next to these, it almost clashes, and it's that clash that makes the colours even brighter, so it makes them quite bold. Whereas, say for example, if we're just looking at these colours, they can look quite almost neutrally, very pleasing to the eye, but once you add in the opposite colour as well, it really makes them pop and it exaggerates both. So yeah, we've got these three here. We could equally just use something from there, and an opposite. So some sort of greeny yellow, some sort of turquoise and a pink would be nice. Can you see how you can start to kind of match things up in different ways? We've also got the triad. So this is literally the yellow, the blue and the red. And again, we can spin that around. So you've got your turquoise, your kind of ochre colours here, and the more sort of pinky purples. So that's another combination you could use. And here we've got the tetrad. And again, this is almost like this oblong shape here. So we've got these two colours. We've got the reddy orange, the yellowy orange, and then over here, because again they're opposites, we've got the blue violet and the blue green or the turquoise. So again, we could spin this around. Here we've got yellow and orange. So we know yellow and orange work quite nicely together. We've got like a yellow here and an orange. They're quite harmonious. And equally, we've got them opposite these. So if we look here at where the corners are, we've got a blue and a violet. So it's that here, look, the blue is going to really help. Well, we've got this one for it to pop. So if you see the difference then of putting these two together, quite harmonious. And then these two, they almost clash, and it's that bright clash which can really help in your work. So yeah, this is where it's been really fun with over there playing with all my swatches. Obviously I've got some here, and I was playing more with kind of a wider scope, so almost like the base of this big triangle here, and then using, yeah, playing around with what I could use opposite. So either this one, so I could use reds and pinks opposite all of these, or I could use maybe two here because you're opposite, almost like using this tetrad here. So even though I'm using the whole spectrum around here, these harmonious colours, I've got these two opposites. So yeah, you don't have to go in depth like this. Don't feel overwhelmed that every single painting you need to think about every single piece. This is just really nice to kind of understand colour in a deeper way. And sometimes if you've painted something, because I always work with colour intuitively, has always been my thing. But if you've painted something and it doesn't quite look right, or it looks a bit flat, or it looks like it's missing something, maybe it's a good idea to reach for your colour wheel and see kind of what's opposite, and could you use a little bit, you know, maybe a few splatters or a few little marks of the colour on the other side. So just something to be mindful of. Right, let's delve into actually making some colour palettes now. I've done this one here, which I'll show you. And again, this was kind of intuitive. These were a few supplies that I had out on the desk that I thought I would make some new little colour swatches from, and they actually look really nice together. This is something that's come up for me, is that I obviously gravitate towards the same sort of colours, because this here, which is magenta, is actually the same, very similar colour here to my Neo Colour purple, my Neo Colour 2. So this is quite nice to know as well. Say if you're going out like to cafe drawing or something, I would definitely take this instead of my ink bottle. It's just less messy. So I'm going to remove that one for now, and I've come across this. So if we have a look on here, where these kind of sit, I would say this sits more here between the red and the violet. We've then got oranges, we've got a pink in here, we've got a peach in here. So we're very much working here on this side. Can you see there? Like they're quite harmonious how they work together. So yeah, if we're looking at kind of this side of the spectrum, maybe even just these three actually. And then if we look kind of opposite, we see what we've got going opposite. Let's do it on this one. We've got these three. Let's go here for these three in the centre. If we went opposite, we could pick out a green. So maybe something like this would be nice to work with. But actually these, I just love the combination of pink and blue. So here we're kind of more delving into this section here. So it's almost the triad. It's more like over here, isn't it? So if we look at the blue, is definitely that blue. And then this is a really, really dark blue. So we're almost working sort of opposite this colour, I guess. There, can you see? It's not exactly opposite. Maybe this is more in the red-orange category as opposed to the orange. But you can see how that is a nice accent and how they pop together. This is also why pink and green look so nice together. So green and pink, any combination of green and pink look really nice together because they pop. So anyway, I've pulled together all of these supplies, which are these. So I'm just going to kind of scribble and do a mandala orb with all of these and see how that looks. But I thought it would be fun to pull together some other colour palettes as well, and then we can try a few things all together. So this has been so fun. just playing around with all of these little paper swatches. I'm so glad I did this. It's just a really nice way to see all the supplies that you've already got, and just, yeah, kind of play around with how they work together. So look at that. I just love the relationship between these two as well. Yeah, pink and blue, definitely my favourite. Right, let's find some more colour palettes. Okay, so I've pulled out our lovely book again, and I've just placed a little tab in here. So I have found this colour palette here, which is really pretty, lots of greens in there, and a very pale blue. So I've pulled out what I kind of had that was closest. So I've got this grey, which is a Neocolour 2. I've got this dark, which is a Forest pencil. I've got this aqua, light aqua, which again is a light fast pencil. And I've got this Holbein leaf green. So to me, those were like the closest that I have to these exact colours. But I then thought, well, if I look at this picture, this is actually very close. So this is my Inktense block. So again, it's very similar to the pencil I've got there. So I've added this one in. And I've also got this kind of lighter olive, well, it's, yeah, called light olive, but lighter yellowy kind of green. So I've added this in here as well. So this is my overall palette. If I put this down, this is the palette I've made from this, but can you see it's very harmonious, very much just greens with this little bit of blue in here. Let's put all these in here. So very similar on the colour wheel here. We've kind of got a bit of the yellowy, but it's mainly in here, so in here, and maybe we've got a little bit of blue from over here, okay? So if we then wanted to make this pop and maybe make it a bit more interesting, we can look on the opposite end here. So opposite to our kind of bluey colour, maybe we've got a peachy, but opposite green as well is generally the purple. So we've got this kind of violet colour here and the red. So I've pulled out these two, which this is kind of the closest I could find to some sort of pinky colour. So it's a pink pencil. And I've got my Neocolour 2, which is a great match there for the violet. So if I then add these in to this colour palette, it changes it dramatically. So obviously we've got the pink then, which is kind of opposite the greens, and look how beautiful that is there. What a contrast it is. And again, it's almost like clashing, and it just is beautiful. So it works really well with all of these. And you've got the purple as well, so they just make the greens and the blues pop. And obviously purple's opposite yellow. So suddenly this is a really interesting colour palette. We don't need to use a lot of these accent colours, but it just changes it quite dramatically. So anyway, I've pulled out all of these. So if we lay these out again, and these are my supplies. So they're my two accent colours, which are these two. And then I've got my Neocolours, Inktense blocks, and the pencils. So these are all the things I'd swatched here. So I'm running out of room on the desk, so I think I'm just going to play around with these to start with, swatch these in my sketchbook, and we'll see how we get on. I'll try and time-lapse this bit for you so you can watch my process. Okay, so here are the two mandala orbs that I was working on. I've been working on these for the last few days, and already you can see how much they transform when you add the line work. And again, it's because you're kind of adding this black and white, and it creates that deep contrast that really lifts everything else. So yeah, the black, or where it's dark, usually kind of draws the eye in as well. And I just love these compositions anyway. But yeah, thinking back to our colour, so if we look in here, these are the colours that we used. I have drawn back in on top. I drew in again with this one, the purple neo colour. This is not usually a colour I would reach for, and I think this is maybe one of the reasons why I'm not personally loving this colour palette so much. But I think it's because I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone. So yeah, it's definitely, yeah, been interesting, this kind of tug of war internally. So these are my colour chips here that I was working with. I think these are the same ones anyway. So very much green with some grey, and then accents of the purple and the pink. Well, I ended up just intuitively pulling out some of my favourites. So I've got, oh no, that was already in there. I've got this one, which is my Holbein Coral pencil. So this, I was adding just little accents of pink around the edges, pink into the leaves. So that's a really nice contrast with the green and the kind of sort of minty, or like the, what's it, like a light olive colour that I've got quite a lot of. But I just love a turquoise as well. I couldn't help myself. So again, I've pulled some turquoise in here, and I think the turquoise works really well with the purple as well. And it's kind of a very bluey green, so of course it's going to work well with the green. I did as well use my white Posca. So this I worked back in on top. I'd put in those big purple splodges. I added in some more and then used the Posca on top. Equally, I put in these little white dots, and even here you can see them on the leaves, little white dots, so accents. And yeah, I thought they were really nice. So it's really interesting how this one's turned out, and I did really push myself with this. So I am really pleased with the result. I think it's, yeah, definitely really fun. There's something quite murky, and I don't know, there's something I'm not really loving about this, but I think it's because I usually work very intuitively, and so trying to kind of force myself in a way, I suppose, to use the specific colours that we picked out. I found that really hard. I was surprised how hard that felt to do. Anyway, let's go on to this one, and I have similar feelings with this one. We obviously had the blues, which was supposed to be the accent actually, and they ended up kind of taking over. So I almost feel like it's more of a 50-50 split between the orange and the blue. And I really didn't intend to do that. I really wanted to use, you know, maybe more colours like these that would work really nicely together, and then have the blues as accents. And somehow it ended up being, I would say, mainly these, and then this orangey colour in here. And again, there's something I don't like about it. I've drawn in a little bit with a coloured pencil, again, just trying to pull this blue out a bit. So potentially I could have maybe covered all of this in blue and just let little bits of the orange peek through. And I think that might have worked a lot better. But again, this is me really pushing my boundaries, really trying to kind of uncover how I work with colour and learn how to work with colour in a new way. And that's definitely something that I'm doing as I go here. So as I said, I found it quite difficult to pull out the colour palette this way and work with these alone. So I think in our next video what I'm going to do is create some more mandala orbs, but I'm going to do them intuitively, and then afterwards we'll pull out the colour swatches and then see where they fit on the colour wheel, and see if there's potentially a little accent colour that I could just add a few little marks from at the end. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting. This is definitely a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, and definitely learning a lot as I go through this. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Lots of love. Bye.